that if I put the mask, it's really difficult from here. But because Okay, so second day of the workshop. Yesterday, 4 of you had to leave, but we started working on defining which was our experience, right? Which was our message, what we wanted to communicate, also the value proposition of our story, and then we also started thinking about which would be the setting of my story, the world of experience, where it will develop, the characters, and a little bit the synopsis, as well as developing the characteristics of my experience, whether it was live action, it was cinematic, what holds the weight of the action, and etc. So trying to visualize the experience, how will it feel for the audience, and we also started trying to understand who will be the audience we were trying to reach. Of course, we tried to reach as many people as possible, but for example, there was one project, the Blooming Consciousness, which was about being able to generate empathy with beings that are not humans, such as plants, for example. And here, there was the decision, should I tailor this story for people who is already like into vegetarianism or veganism, so they are already like quite aware that we should be more mindful with nature? Or should I actually try to target people who are meat lovers that they don't really care because I want to communicate something to them? So in a way the experience will end up looking quite different, whoever I'm trying to target. And today we're going to work during the morning with world building, which is essentially when I know the message of my story and I know what I want to communicate, this is a mind mapping tool that helps me imagine my story from the user's standpoint. So it's an exercise of imagining that user landing into that imaginary world that I'm creating for them and trying to figure out how will they feel. So I keep tailoring my experience so I can have some sort of control over the way they feel. So I design it to achieve my purpose and what do I want them to feel. It's a tool that it's not really tailored to give you a specific answer. It's really a tool to help you understand the user's standpoint so you can make your own decisions. In all the tools that we design, there is no right or wrong. It's really for you guys to have like a better understanding of the user and make your own decisions. The story, the example that I'm going to follow is really linear, so it's a story with a strong plot. Whereas your stories are way more experimental. But I think because linear stories are the more difficult to craft in this medium, I will just follow this example with the really linear story. But then we can go more specific into the different stories that you guys have, so we can see how to work with this tool, which can be applied anyways to a more experimental story. Is actually way easier. But I'm just gonna explain the most difficult case, because I think if it's not for the project, it can help you for other ones. And also, I think as a mental map to understand how do I try to seduce the user in the way I want to, it works quite well. So, what I had till now in my story was a synopsis, characters, settings, my audience, and the type of experience that I wanted to create. So in my case, I had this story, Chasing the Moon, which my message was to tell people that passion can help them achieve their dreams. So it was like a really empowering story, which developed in 4 worlds of experience, being the 49ers Stadium, the NASA headquarters, rocket ship, and the moon. And I had 3 main characters: Mike, the photographer, he's the main character, Sarah, the astronaut, and then I had Paul, Mike's assistant, who is actually the character that the audience is going to impersonate. These were my settings, these were my characters, and this was my audience that takes the place of Paul. So, taking this tool, which is the tool that I use for mind mapping, this is not a physical representation. These circles are not a physical representation of the space. They are a tool to help me understand how the user feels inside my story. But let's go really step by step. So, these are my worlds, because if it's a linear story, me as a creator, I have defined the order in which the user steps into each wall, right? So I have decided that they are going to start in the stadium and they're going to walk all the way through the moon. So as a creator, I've made this decision to make that choice for them. So this is the first wall, because I start designing wall by wall. This is the first wall, the stadium. I even decide where I want to place the audience, which is Paul, the assistant of Mike, and I want to place them in the corner of the field. This is of course the first decision I have to make. I could place him in the middle of the field, I could place him outside the stadium, but I want to place him in the corner. And this is the action line, a little bit. This is beyond the audience. This is the action that happens in the stadium. Right? So what happens in the stadium is that Mike is the photographer, the main character, is at the 49-acre stadium working. That night there is an eclipse and he takes an awakening picture of the moon thanks to his assistant. My goal for the audience is that you discover my passion, so I want that in this first wall, I want to help the audience understand which is Mike's dream. So this is the wall I'm trying to achieve. And that you help him find the great shot of the eclipse, because you find that great shot. So first I need to teach you which is Mike's dream, and then you will be the one that will help him find that picture. So, the first thing that I do is that I start first of all, because right now I know that I want to place this on a stadium, but it's very vague, my idea. I also know what I want to achieve, but there is like 1,000 ways to do that. So I start thinking in two different directions. On one side, I start thinking about the potential characters' actions, which this will be what will happen in any traditional movie. There is characters, there is things happening to them. So I will do the same brainstorming session for my story, because, as I said, this one is a very linear one. So I will start thinking, okay, what does happen in that scene? So for example, I can imagine that Mike is explaining Paul his passion, that Mike is taking pictures randomly all over the stadium, that Mike is walking around the field looking for the best picture, that the 49ers are playing obviously too much, that Mike is eating a hot dog. I don't know, I just started like putting down all the ideas that I have in my head of all the things that could happen. And that Mike is telling me about tonight's eclipse. Beyond this, which are the characters, and this is all the random actions I could think about, I also start thinking, because it's VR and because the audience is in that scene, what can they do beyond what's happening with the characters? Just because you are in a stadium, what could you do? So for example, because you are Mike's assistant, you also have a camera, so you could look through the camera, and that has nothing to do with the story that's happening with them. You could also listen to Mike or not, maybe you don't care at all what he's saying. You could watch the match, why not? You're in a 49 minutes, it's really expensive to get in, like you may just be really engaged on the match and you don't care about anything else. You could look for the clips, because maybe at some point you listen to Mike and then he tells you there is a clip, so you start looking for it. You could also walk around the field, why not? And you can watch Mike taking pictures. So I started thinking about all the actions that as a user you could do related to the characters and related to the space where you are existing, which is quite interesting. Then maybe here I wrote too many ideas and I realized that why should Mike eat a hot dog? It's not really interesting, so I just take it out. Or also I think that if I make Mike walk too much around the field, it might be confusing for the user, so I also take this out. So I also think that the audience shouldn't be allowed to walk so much, because it might be distracting, because I really want the audience to focus on understanding Mike's dream. So finally I decide to go for these actions, and this is what I want to happen in this first walk. Next step. So we go into that wall, and I start placing the ideas around the user. This is not a physical representation. This is just a way of mapping my ideas physically. So it's just a tool that helps me visualize a little bit more what I'm trying to do and what's going to happen in that wall. So I place the ideas around the user. At this time, I don't really need to care about the order in which I place them. But if you realize that the way I wrote in the ideas is that they're always related to the user. So what I'm saying, I'm never writing down Mike is taking pictures, because that's something that I will design and I will code into the story. But what I'm trying here to envision is all the things that I am allowing my audience to do in that world. So if you look at the sentence, I am always saying, watch the match. So I imagine that the audience can watch the match, or watch Mike taking pictures, or listen to Mike, or look for the clips, or look through my camera. So I'm actually writing down the actions that I cannot control, but the options that the audience has. Because everything else that's gonna happen is under my control. I can decide what Mike does, but I cannot decide what the audience does. So here I'm trying to map and understand the options that I want to give to my audience. Same thing for the next quote. This story is way more complicated than yours, because most of you, I think you only have one quote, and in my case I have 4. But just for the sake of it, in the NASA headquarters, as per characters' actions, I have Mike meets Sarah, which is the astronaut. Sarah invites him to the space. Thanks. What you guys do, right? Mike makes a speech. Mike receives the award. Remember that they are in the NASA headquarters, and he's being given an award for his picture. Or Mike walks around the corridor where his picture and some others are exhibited. Or Mike cries. Why not? It's like touch. And I also think about the audience action. So I can follow Mike, I can look at the picture, I can engage on scientist conversations because they are also invited to the exhibition and they are talking about things about the space, and I engage with these conversations. I can walk around the corridor, I can follow Sarah, or I can engage on Mike and Sarah's conversation. These are all the things that I can do. Again, here I decide that I don't want Mike to cry, he has to be strong person. And I don't want to follow Sarah because I think that I want still the audience to focus on Mike, and I think that if they are allowed to follow Sarah, it might get too confusing. So this is all the actions that I am left with. So I go again to my second wall, the NASA headquarters, and I place all the actions around the user. Again, these are the actions that I cannot control, but the options that my audience has in this wall. Next, the spaceship. Here is I skipped the brainstorming part. Here are the options that I have. In the spaceship, I can explore the control system because it's pretty cool and I've never been in a spaceship and I want to see how it looks like. I can listen to Sarah. I can look at the space from the window. I can engage on Mike and Sarah's conversation. And I can also look at the moon from the window. Next one, at the moon. Here, what can I do? I can explore the moon, of course, I've never been there. I can watch Mike and Sarah kissing if I'm into it. But I can look at the earth from the moon, and I can meet an alien. So these are all the options that I have in this world. Okay, next chapter. Here, till now, we only have defined all the options that we are giving to the user. These are all the things that you could potentially do. But because my story is quite linear, I'm trying to tell you a story and I want to define that journey for you because I think if I help you, you can have a much better experience than if you just get lost into the story. What I want to do now is I want to try to understand which will be the audience journey for me as a creator. If I could choose, like, what I want my audience to do, what would I want them to do? So, the first thing I decide is the entry action. So what I would like you to do first when you arrive into that world. In that case, I think the most obvious thing before I really get you into the story, I want you to watch the match. So I'm gonna place you in front of the field. First thing that's in your field of vision is the match. So that will be the way I would like you to enter my story. Then I also define which is the key action. What's the key thing that I want to happen in this world is that you discover the clips, which is what takes you to the next world. And the build-up action is this action that helps you discover the key action, which in this case that I would like that you listen to mine. Here I'm just making a wish list. I haven't started tilting it so I can make this happen. Here I'm just like making my wish list. What would I want my audience to do? And this is it. I would like you to start watching the match, listen to Mike so you discover the clips, and watch Mike taking pictures and look through your camera. Are nice to have actions, are extra actions that I provide you with because you have a more enjoyable experience in that world, but they are not really relevant for you to understand the story. They are just like entertaining things you could do in this world. For the next one, because I imagine that the transition between World 1 and World 2 will be that you look at the clips, then the picture is taken. The first thing that I want to do is to change the point of view. So in the next wall, you land in the next wall looking straight at the picture. So you're looking at the same thing from a different perspective. And then you realize that you're not anymore in the stadium, but you are in a place where that picture is being exhibited. So then you start figuring out what has happened. So the first thing, and where I want to place you first in this new world, is just in front of the picture. That's the thing that I want you to see. As a key action, I want you to engage on Mike and Sarah's conversation, because that is when you will hear her inviting Mike and you to the spaceship to go to the moon. So this is important for me that you actually listen to this bit of conversation, because otherwise what you're doing on the moon. And I think the way that I can make sure that you listen to this conversation is that I can make you follow Mike. If you follow Mike, you will likely end up meeting Sarah, so you will listen to this conversation. Next word. Here I land in the control system. So that's the first thing I have in front, because I think it's probably the most engaging thing or the most entertaining thing that the users can find on a spaceship. And my key action, so you realize that you are landing in the moon, is when you're looking at the moon from the window. So this is the key action that helps you transition to the moon. At the moon, the first thing you will see is that you will be seeing the Earth from the moon, so it's a complete change of perspective. And my main goal in this last world and in my story is not that you see Mike and Sarah kissing. Maybe you're really into romantic movies and you wanna like go and like follow their story. But for me, it's all about dreams. So we have been following Mike all the way from the Earth to the moon, chasing the dream. The last thing I want you to do is to meet an alien whose dream is to go to the Earth. So I close the story this way. So the last thing I would like you to do is that you meet this alien in my story. This is my wish list. This is what I wish that happens in my story, and this is how I wish that audiences engage with all the different worlds, all the different characters, and all the different actions. How do I make sure that this is likely to happen? In VR, you can never be 100% sure that something is going to happen. Like if you try to aim for 100%, you will have to create a black space with just one thing in front. And even though I'm not sure you could get 100%. So you're, in a way, aiming for your highest bet, for the highest number of people that will likely follow the path you design. That's why it's also important to understand who your ideal audience is, because if you understand what motivates them to act, it's way easier that you can actually guide them or in a way manipulate them so they follow your ideal path. So, here is when I come back to my first world and I try to envision which will be the things that will catch my audience attention. It's the same. If I am in this world and I know who is my audience, which are the things that are going to be interesting or they're going to be curious about or they will want to know more. So for example, when they land on the match, I think that probably the first thing probably the thing that's going to be more like eye-catching if you're watching a 49ers game is the batter, because it's like in a way is the most relevant player. This is interesting to know because, for example, if I am quite sure that most people that land on this world watching the match and the field is in front and the most eye-catching thing is the butter, then I can use this butter to guide audience attention. So for example, he could be beating the wall towards the kids. So this is important to know because you can use all these things to guide this attention. Once you start identifying the small things that you think that are relevant and that are making people curious. In the case of Listen to Mike, which is my build-up action, I think that I can make him have a very characteristic tone of voice. So you are likely surprised or interested in listening what he's saying, just because he has like quite a particular tone of voice. Then in the NASA headquarters, because my transition from the stadium to the NASA headquarters is the same image that first you saw on the field and then you're looking on a picture, I think it's going to take you a few seconds or probably a minute to understand what has happened and to look at this picture from a different point of view. So I think you're probably going to be engaged on this picture for a while. Then also, I think Mike, because everything that's happening and because I want you to follow him, probably I want to make the character behave quite strangely or really excited so it really catches your attention. In the spaceship, I think because it's a spaceship and most of us will never be in one, you see all this massive control, you're probably going to be engaged for quite some time, like exploring all the buttons and seeing how all of this works. Then I'm also thinking, if someone wants to look through the space from the window, what's going to catch their attention? Probably it's not going to be the blue sky, or it's going to be like the planets and the shiny stars. So I could also use this to use a particular planet to guide your attention, for example, to the moon, if I don't want to place it in front of you straight away. So understanding the things that are like eye-catching, it's very useful to make a more smooth experience. And finally, in the moon, I'm gonna probably be, as a user, looking at the Earth from the moon first, because again, it's something we are probably never gonna experience, and also it's quite unique, so I imagine that people will be engaged on looking to that image for quite some time. This one is a mistake. But for the alien, because I really want you to meet this alien, probably I will have to make him quite special, so it doesn't look maybe so much as a human, but I want him to really stand out to you, so you go and see and try to meet him and understand what he's doing there, for example. And wait, I'm gonna skip this one. Here, to the cues. Going back to this board. I identified my ideal journey. I've identified the points of interest, but the question is, are they enough, the organic points of interest of my story? Or should I actually enhance them if I really want some things to happen for you and that you actually pay attention to them? So here is when I decide that probably I need to add cues. So if, for example, if Mike's voice tone is not enough to catch people's attention, and because it's so crucial that you actually listen to him, maybe he starts calling me and his voice starts getting really loud, so at some point it will be unavoidable that I actually turn around and listen to him. In that case, another tip to use is that if you make every other character look at a particular direction, it's quite likely that the audience is also going to look there, curious why everyone is staring at some particular point. So here, because I really want to make sure that you listen, that she's inviting you to the moon, I'm gonna use some cue to make sure that this happens for as much people as possible. In that case, I'm not gonna use a cue, but I'm gonna make the moon follow the field of view of the user. So whatever the user is doing when he's looking through the window, even if he doesn't find the moon, it's okay, because I'm actually going to make the moon meet the user, so it's going to be more like the moon comes to you. And finally, on the moon, because I really want you to meet this alien, I'm going to make him have bright colors and make heavy noises. when he walks. So this will lead me to understand the experience that I'm trying to design, and I'm going to try to represent the audience attention with this. This is not really the field of view what I'm representing now, it's just how I am guiding audience attention. So I will start here. The yellow, the red line, to me is like the audience attention and their eight side. So I start at the stadium, I'm watching the match. Ideally, I want you to look through your camera if you want to. I think that most people will fall for it because you have it like in here, so you want to try it out. Then maybe you will watch my take pictures, I'm not sure, but that's something that may happen. But eventually what I really want to happen is that you listen to Mike, and then finally look for the clips. And when you're looking at the clips, you transition to that picture in the NASA headquarters. In the NASA headquarters, you may walk around the corridor, engage in scientist conversation. You may walk around the corridor, engage in scientist conversations. It's really not relevant for me, but I think it might be interesting to entertain some time during this. But I want you to engage on Mike and Sarah's conversation. Maybe I decided after adding this cue that I don't need you to follow Mike because I think it's easier if I just make everyone look at them. So after engaging on Mike and Sarah's conversation, you land on the spaceship, on the control system. Here I'm making quite a bold change of world because there is no smoothness in the change, but because I'm going to give you a lot of time and you have already listened to the conversation and you know that you have been invited to go to the moon, it feels kind of natural that you're taking a spaceship. So you will just land straight into the spaceship and you can be exploring the control system. You can look at the space from the window, and then the moon is going to come just in front of you. You're going to land in the moon, and you can see the Earth from the moon. Then you can explore the moon, maybe watch Mike and Sarah kissing. I really don't care about this, but it's just there for you to discover. And finally, I want you to finish this experience meeting my aid. So this is a tool that helps you really understand all the options that you're giving your audience in every different world, all the things that they could potentially do, and then it's when you start trying to manipulate them and see how can you catch their attention so they can follow the most ideal journey that you designed for them. This is a super linear story because, as you can see, it has a very clear plot and I really know what I want to show you. Non-linear stories, they are way easier because you are creating a really fun space for people to wander about and discover things on their own, at their own pace. There is no really, I don't have such a clear goal as a creator in terms of narrative, so they are like way easier, not easier in terms of creating them or designing them, and they're like as powerful, probably more sometimes, because linear narrative at the very beginning people was like really interesting and that's all what people wanted to do, especially people transitioning from film to VR. But these ones normally work better because you don't have that much stress in trying to guide user and trying to make them not miss anything. So here you can sort of create this world where people can like have fun. So for example, here we will have the first wall. I have to keep the same, a little bit the same, not story, a little bit the same theme on the 49ers with the two photographers. But the other walls are different. So essentially you are staying all the time in the stadium here. So I'll put it together. So here we will have the user. The first wall will be the field. And you will start as well watching the match. You have different actions you can do, but then you have portals. So you can transition to other small walls within the 49ers stadium. You can actually walk into the field, you can walk into the fitting room, you can listen to the sportscasters and even go to their little space. But it's more of an experience where you can wander around the different spaces, and here I don't have a clear intention on what I want you to see or I want you to do. I just want to let you be part of this show, and either you want to be in the field taking pictures, you want to be in the middle of the match, you want to be in the fitting room listening to the players, or or you want to be on the sports sector. And just before we finish that part and we go more specifically into your stories, here are some examples of this year. We've been doing a lot of online courses with people who's like designing stories, and here are some of the different ways that people have used these tools. So for example, this guy, he started with a linear story that once you've gone through the story, it becomes non-linear. So essentially it's experience where you end up becoming a piece of art. So at the very beginning, the experience is guided because you start being like someone going to the gallery until you end up becoming the painting. But once you end the painting, you sort of came out of the painting as being an abstract form of art, and you can wander around the exhibition, because after the whole experience, his point is that then you see art in a completely new way. So after you've become the piece of art, you can sort of wander between the whole gallery. Each different world that they do, or this one which is quite more simple. This story is actually quite nice because it's about a guy who always dreamed of being a pianist. So you meet this guy when he's a baby, and you as the audience can clap him. And when you clap, he gets very cheerful and very happy, and he plays better every time. Until at some point, clapping starts making him anxious because he realized he has to stop playing for the right reasons, and now he just wants people's attention. And you as the audience and the one that's clapping, you have like a lot of mixed feelings. So then you sort of need to restart a new relationship with the kid that wanted to play piano. So it's a mix between a linear story and a very experimental one, because it has a plot, but it's a plot that really can change based on who you are and how do you feel about what you're creating for the child. So, yeah, this is like a lot of theory, and as I said, I just explained that because I think you may want to use it sometime, and also like a lot of these tools are like recorded, and then we can borrow you all the tools. But I think because I think all of the stories that we have here they have one setting and they are much more experimental. But I still think that